Hello and welcome to vlog number 14. This week has been a bit of an on and off week. I've been very busy with work, and as I'm sure you all understand, sometimes you just don't get as much time to hobby as you want. For example, yesterday I sat down to do some hobbying. I was so tired, I went to bed at 8:30. So yeah, that's reality. And that's what these vlogs are all about. It's got a bit done though. I've done quite a varied week when I have got to it. I've spent more time on Rosie's Hobbit Hole obviously, and I've started a couple of new projects which I'll be introducing to you through this video, which will be arriving as build with me's once they're completed, probably in not very long order because they're quite quick builds, I hope. So without any further ado, I will thank you for watching, and we'll jump back to past beard, and I will see you again at the end of the video. All the fences are now glued in place and dry. So what I'm now going to do is use my wood stain. I've gone for boar, which is basically pine, and I'm going to paint that over all of the wood, all the wood fencing, and then I'll probably put the grey wash on it as well, because in the pictures it looks very old, and I might even put some green and stuff. But first of all, before I do any of that fancy stuff, what I need to do is put this boar all over the wood. So I'm going to get started, and I'll pop some music on. Well, there we are. That took not very long and is a very nice effect. So I'll let that dry and maybe come back for another coat, or maybe just come back and do the grey wash. But yeah, I'm really pleased with that. That was the correct colour to pick. And now comes the flocking and static grass. So I was thinking about not bothering to put any flocking down at all, but having thought about it a little bit more, I've decided that I am going to put some flocking down. And what I'm going to be using is actually some purchased, which is unusual for me because I normally use my own that I've made myself. But I'm going to be using this, which is Struve Material Lichtgrün from some, obviously, German company. I can't remember, I bought that in Belgium. So I'm going to put that on over this area and around this, all along the front here on this side of the board. So I will hopefully not get in shot because the camera's on the wrong side, so I normally do it. So yeah, here goes, just using my normal terrain glue. A few clips back, I said I was just going to go and cut these out and stick them on the Hobbit Hole. It's a couple of days later now, and I have just finished cutting these out. That has taken me quite some time. I ended up using some nail scissors because they were small enough for me to guide around, but it has put quite a nice little wheel on my thumb, as you can see, and one on my finger. So the pain that we go through for our hobby. What I am now going to do is just stick them down on the path. So I'll point the camera down now and you can watch me do this process. Here we are then. I have a couple of pictures to guide me. I have this one here which clearly shows the path, as you can see, and I have this one here which is from a bit further out but also clearly shows the two paths. I probably have far too many of these slabs and I might even have made them too small, but it is what it is and I'm quite happy with how it looks, so I'm just going to go ahead. So the idea is for me to just paint on some PVA here and then dot the slabs in place and leave them to dry, because the thing next will be to put the grass between them, and I think the best way to do this is in this way. So I'm going to put some PVA down, neat, and use a wet brush to spread it out. But not too wet, because I want it to be relatively neat actually, so that it sticks quite well. Don't want it to be too thick, but I do not want it also to be too much thin. So with that little section done, let's start selecting and dropping in bits of slab. So yeah, they do, they start right at the edge. Okay, with that done, I'm now going to scatter. I've decided while I've been working on this that I am going to immediately do a scatter of my flock over this, because I'll probably struggle to paint the glue in between these tiles if I leave it. So it doesn't want to be completely covered. If I'm looking at these pictures, I can see that there is some patches of mud. But what I'll probably end up having to do, having said I'll struggle to paint between, is see if I can to get a slightly thicker covering. Because on additional thoughts, I possibly should have done this process before I put the ground cover down. There we are, the front path to Sam and Rosie's Hobbit Hole is laid. Now I will do the same process for the other Hobbit Hole, but I won't subject you to watching that, so I'll show you what it looks like when it is completed. That wasn't too painful actually, which is a little bit of a surprise for me, but hey, we've done that, and I've also, as I say, scattered the flock just around the sides of the slabs. I'm probably going to have to go in and do some more flocking around this to make it a bit more flush and fill in those gaps a little bit more, but that can come on. For now I'm happy with that. What you'll also notice, apologies for the scraping sound there, what you'll also notice is that I've stuck in the water pump right there next to the path. Little hand pump, which is also on the images, so I'm very pleased with how that's looking also, and I'm actually pleased with how it's coming out overall. So I'm going to walk away from that now, leave it overnight, come back and make sure that's all dried in the morning, maybe put another scatter or two of the flock during the day, and then when that's done I can then do the flock the same as I've done over the rest of the build, front of the build, over the rest of the build, over the top of the mound and also around the rest of the garden. So yeah, it's getting on well. Next thing to do for this diorama is to have a look at the additional Bardin's Tombs kit that I ordered and that arrived the other day. So you can see that there's some quite bad sprue markings and things that need to be tidied up on this kit, all over it actually. So I'm going to do that. I've just got a X-Acto blade, a Citadel one as it happens, and I'm just going to very carefully take off all of the sprue joints like that and tidy up the whole kit. That's the first thing to do. The second thing that I'm going to be doing, and this is something which I've been waiting for quite a long time. I ordered these a long time ago, basically because Luke APS said don't buy them, so I did. This is the Warriors of Erewhon Skeleton Warriors kit, and I've bought these not to make them up into Skeleton Warriors, but to use for parts, so to use for piles of bones and piles of old rusted weapons and what have you. And clearly in Balin's tomb, as you can see in all of the videos and in all of the pictures, that's exactly what you get when you're there. So I'm going to take some of these apart, and I'm actually going to make some scatter terrain with it, because I'm considering having swappables for making it so I can move it around. I don't know whether that will happen, but at the moment I'm thinking about it, putting these onto some flat bases and having quite a variety of these that can be dropped into the spaces on the board and swapped around, so we can have a pile of rubble to make difficult terrain or to make it impassable, or have it flat so it becomes passable, so that the game can be changed around and more playable. That's the idea anyway. So I'm going to crack on with that. There's no point in me watching it, and I will bring you back in when something new or exciting is happening on this build. With these cleaned up now, I'm starting to think about how they're going to fit actually into the diorama. And what you can see here is the doorway that fits quite nicely into the gap that I've cut. I'll zoom that out a bit so you can see it a little bit more in situ, in context as well. So this gives me a little bit of the depth I'm going to need to be having, certainly going into and out of the hall, which is a bit shallower than I wanted to, and I might lift it up a little bit more than it is, so I might trim away either side and lift that a bit, but it's certainly going to fit in very well, and the scale is actually quite close. I'm pleased that I got that hole well enough. I don't think that a cave troll is ever going to fit through there, but you'll have to use some poetic license when the cave troll arrives anyway. So yeah, so I'm going to work a little bit on that now. I'm going to start putting together the platforms that are going to go inside the back area. So if I move this a little bit, you can see that in that area in the back, that's going to have a well, and it's going to have the tomb itself, and also some other stuff, including some of the skeletons out of this pack, as I've mentioned, and the other skeletons and other items that come with the Balin's tomb actual kit, the box set. So yeah, I'm going to work on that, and I will show you what it looks like when I've made a little bit more progress. As I was working away on the Balin's tomb diorama, I thought I'd have a quick check to see just how long it was going to be before the items I've ordered for it would come. Now, I did know they were going to take a little while because the guy was suffering some delays in his process. I've just been on the website and found that sadly there's going to be some more delays, an unknown length of delays sadly. So what I've done is I put that build to one side. I'm not going to let it upset me, though I was really looking forward to it and I'm a little bit upset. But I'll pick it up again as soon as those supplies have been delivered, so you won't see that build for a little while. It could be months, who knows, but it will just sit there, it's on the top shelf, it's not going anywhere, and I will return to it. Now we have more flocking to do. The paths are dry nicely, so I'm going to continue flocking all over the whole of this evening. I'm not going to point the camera down because it's going to take me quite a while, and it will just be a boring speeded up picture of stuff that you've seen before. But suffice to say, glue, flock, leave it. And that'll be me for the next hour or so. I will see you at the end. That was actually quite an enjoyable process, so I did nearly break my back as I was attempting to put tiny amounts of paint between these slabs to fill in those gaps, which is not going to have been finished now. I'm probably going to have to do it at least once more. But yeah, so what I've done is I have flocked all the way around in the garden, and then I've done a different colour on the bank because I think that's what it would be, and I'm going to let that dry now, and then I'm going to seal it tomorrow, and then carry on with doing some static grasses and finishing it off. Now I do realise that there's nothing I can do now about this being late, unfortunately. It's not going to be done in time for her birthday because one of the suppliers which I ordered some bits from, mainly plant pots, which are really hard to find in this scale, has unfortunately had a little bit of a life crisis and therefore isn't actually going to be able to ship them out at any point in time, I've no idea when they're actually going to start to be shipped, let alone get to me. So I just got to suck that up. So I'll get as far as I can, and it'll be done, and it will be looking nice for Rosie's birthday, but it won't be quite finished, unfortunately. I'll do as much as I can and have it as close as possible, and then I'll probably have to do a little bit of dressing inside each of these gardens with plant pots, etc., when those stuff arrives. However, what has arrived today is this. Look at this. So these are the plaques which were made for me by Nige. I'll put a link to his stuff in the video description below if he's given it to me by then. And yeah, this is this is what's going to be mounted on the front and painted, and it's just, I'm just blown away. I'm absolutely stunned at how nice it is, and that's going to really finish this off. So that will be on, and probably all of the front will be done, and there'll just be some stuff left at the back that won't be finished. But yeah, look at that beautiful thing. Rosie's Hobbit Hole, first birthday, 13th of February 2020. Can't beat it. Thank you so much, Nigel. You've really done me proud, and I'm blown away. So all of you, if you need anything done in terms of laser cutting, go jump over to him and get in touch and give me business. He really, really deserves it. It's an amazing job. So I'm going to let that dry for now, let that go off, and then tomorrow seal it, probably with some varnish, so that it's not reactivatable by using water. And then I'll carry on doing the flocking and all the other layers and textures that I want to put on this to make it look absolutely amazing. But I mean, it is already beautiful, and I'm already really pleased with it. But there's more and more and more to go on, and it'll keep getting better. There we are, very happy. Here is the field that I made, and what I'm now going to be doing is building a shed to go in this area here. I'm going to do it so that it's completely standalone, and so that it can just be put in and taken off when I want it. And I'm going to make it out of wood and then stain it and try to make it look really, really shiny. I'm going to put a lot of effort into this, I think, but it's going to be a quick build. So this is the area that I've got, which is quite small, as you can see. It is about, let me just do an rough, yeah, about 10 centimetres long by about 5 or 6 centimetres deep. So it's going to be a relatively small shed. I'm going to put it on stilts so that it will sit slightly above the ground. It's going to have a little porch on it on one end, and then it'll have the shed here, and I'll have some other dressings around it so that it's clearly a shed. What I'm going to do is, now that I've shown you where the shed's going to sit, I'm going to get a pad and paper and do a slight sketch of what I wanted to look at, and then I'm going to start cutting up bits of wood and sticking it together. So I will bring you along for that ride. The design that I've come up with, which I'm going to build, is as you see on this little scratch pad in front of you. So this is the floor plan. There's going to be a little bit of a porch here, and this is where the building actually is going to be, the actual shed. From the side, you can see that it's lifted about 10 mil off the ground, and that's going to be a brick base which will go all the way around the edge. And I'm going to make use of my rollers for that. There'll be a step here which is going to be about 20 mil deep, so that a miniature can sit on it, and about 5 mil high, so it'll be halfway to the top, and that will also be made of bricks. And then on top, the shed will be taller at the front end than it is, taller at this side here, this end, than it is at this end. So it will slope down back towards that side. However, the back wall will still be tall enough for a miniature to fit in where the door is. I haven't yet decided where the windows are going to go, but that's the rough layout. So what I'm going to need to do now is get my bricks made up and put the base together, and then I can start actually building the shed. The next thing to do on this is to apply the static grass. Now, I've got some summer static grass in 2mm from Luke's APS, which is what I'm going to be using. And I'm going to begin by applying it around the edge of the board, and actually to a bit that you can't see currently in this shot at this end of the board. I'm not going to do anything in the gardens because I'm not ready to do that until I have all of the items I may want to dress them with, which could be a while, but that's how that is. And then once I've done the front with this short static grass, I'm going to go and work on the mound, use maybe some dried static grass or some dead or some longer static grass that's a little different in colour, just because that's what it looks like it is in the picture, a little bit more of a yellowy colour like here. So I'll get started on this bit. I won't film the entire process, but I will do a bit so that anyone that hasn't seen me do this before can see the process of applying static grass, and I'll pop some music on for you to listen to. view of the Hobbit Hole upside down and pointed towards me is going to allow me to continue doing this effect across the whole of the bank. Now I did this yesterday evening and interestingly enough, when I was doing it I was feeling quite unhappy with how it looked. I thought, oh, it looks terrible, it's messy, it's horrible, but I left it. I just left it, I walked away, and when I've come back to it this morning I've been really happy. So I'm very pleased that I did what I did. I did a bit of an experiment while I was doing the flocking, and I'm going to carry on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how I'm getting this effect. One of the issues is that the static grass applicator I've got, as great as it is, World War Scenics, very nice, it does struggle at longer lengths. This here is 6mm, which is right at the top of its limit, if not above its limit. And so for this area along here, what I had to do was put the static grass on and then use, I reach this, a pick like this, if that can focus, there we are, to actually lift along and make it stand up a bit and scrape it so it wasn't lying down and falling forwards over the edge of the actual roof. And that technique worked really well, and I have seen someone else do it, and I can't remember who it is, so apologies if I've stolen that wholeheartedly from someone else. The rest of it I've applied with the classic static grass applicator and just not worried too much about it standing up. It's messy, it's supposed to be messy. So what I'll do is I'll get myself all gathered together, I'll show you the materials I'm using, and then I'll show you me applying it just off camera over on the other side of this chimney. This is the area that I'm going to be doing with the static grass. So let me show you what I've got. First of all, I have a nice tall kiln jar, which is stuffed full of World War Scenics static grass. This particular is the summer static grass at 6mm. Like I say, it is right at the very limit of the applicator. So I've got my trusty static grass applicator, which I will now prepare. And what I've done for this length of flock is I'm using the largest grill, because that's what you need. So what we'll do is we'll get some of this and we'll put it in the static grass applicator. Now, one of the issues I have with this really long static grass, if I can get that to be visible in the light, is its big balls. Let me just pull it out. It's big lumps of the grass, which is not going to make it very easy to apply. So what I do for that is, let me just zoom out slightly so you can see that a little easier. There we are. Is I actually pluck it into the applicator. So I actually pull the little lumps apart, which is a right pain. But if you don't, you just end up shaking and shaking and shaking and nothing comes out. If anyone has any better ideas or any hints and tips how to avoid this problem with your static grass, your longer grasses, please hit me up in the comments below. Gratefully received, and I'll say thank you. With that all broken apart so that it will now fall out, what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply my, again, World War Scenics Fast Tack Glue. I still have some of this, and I have another bottle because this one's running out. So this might run out during this video as it happens. And what I do is I actually put quite a lot on. Then I've got a loose brush which I have sitting in water, and I use that to spread it around because I don't want it to be. What can sometimes happen with this fast tack glue is it actually turns into little kind of ridges. And that doesn't look very, well, it can sometimes look very realistic if you're doing like a line between it on a track and you're doing the line down the middle between the wheels. But in this case I'm looking to, there it is, it's running out. There we are, the death of a bottle of glue live on camera. Yeah, so but I'm looking at spreading this out so that it's actually a generous covering. I am this tight that I will squirt out the last little bit. There we are, that is dead now. And that's good because that's about as much as I would normally do, just to give me a good covering. Spread it around, as I say, with your very wet brush. Brush back in the water. Static grass applicator. Not that I'm really worried about it standing up, but I'll still turn it on and I'll still put my pin in and then I'll shake it up. And as you can see, this is a very messy application. You can see why, when I did this yesterday, I wondered if I was making a huge mistake. There we are. So as you can see, it's not really bothering about standing up. and even if I move this close, it's not really bothering about standing up. But it is making a nice, colourful, variegated, whatever the word's going to be, effect on the bank. And that's what it looks like when it is still wet. I will now carry on and do the rest of the model. There's no point in you watching that, and I will show you what it looks like when it is complete. There you have it. I've applied the 6mm summer grass all over the mound. Had a bit of help with Angela, from Angela, so that was nice to just lift it so I can get to the ends correctly, and that's looking really, really nice. I'm really pleased. I'm blown away by how well this is coming together. I always surprise myself. It's funny, isn't it? So I'm going to let that dry. There's a fair amount more to be done with it, and I have very few days left to finish it, so at least it's nearly done for her birthday, even if it won't be finished. I'm hoping that I have a delivery tomorrow, which will include some stuff that will go in the garden, so I'll be able to work on this bit here, putting some crops in, and maybe putting some flowers and other tufts and what have you over the rest of the build. I'm going to be putting a little bit of, I can't see my hand here, it's actually here, and this corner here, this field here, I'm going to be looking at putting some kind of animal, maybe a horse or maybe a cow or a sheep or something like that, just because to make it some interest. I need to make the fences, the gates as well, so there's a lot more to be done. So I'm not going to be bored while I'm waiting for my deliveries to turn up. But that's where it is right now. I will let that dry overnight and return to that tomorrow. As you can see, this dice tower comes in 4 parts. We have the base, which has a nice courtyard effect for where the dice will tumble out into. We have 2 middle sections, which have their angled to tumble the dice. And we have the very fancy top section, which has some crenellations and a bit of old wood to represent where it's maybe been repaired, and that will go on the top. Now, there are some blemishes in this 3D print. When I received this, Nigel from the Wonder Emporium did tell me that he'd actually packed the wrong thing in the box, but I don't care. I'm very happy with it. I'll be able to show off some techniques for repairing. There's only one thing that really bothers me very much, and that's this little bubble here in this bottom crenellation around the courtyard. I'll show you how to fix it. So for me, it's actually a win. It comes with a bit of flash, which I will need to repair and remove. But first of all, what I'm going to do is talk about the dimensions. Now, I've sat down quite badly because I don't actually have my ruler to hand. So I will grab a ruler and then be back and we'll talk about that. And like the professional that I am, here I am with a nice little metal ruler. So the dimensions are as follows. The base unit, the actual tower, is 8 centimetres square, 80mm square, just over 3 inches. And in the same way, the little kind of courtyard bit is another 8 centimetres. So in total, it's going to be 16 centimetres by 8 centimetres. Each section looks like it's 5 centimetres tall, so if we put that on top and that on top, we're going to find that that's 15 centimetres, give or take. And then the top section, which is slightly shorter, is 3 centimetres. So the dimension of the height is going to be 18 centimetres tall, or maybe very slightly taller for that tallest bit, so 19 centimetres. So you're looking at about 16 centimetres at the largest extent here, 8 centimetres across, and less than 20 centimetres tall. So it's quite compact, but that's not a bad thing. Okay, now that we've gone through the dimensions, what I'm going to do is start tidying and cleaning up the print. Now what you can see is that there's little bits of flash which is just around the base of each of the sections. Let me zoom that in a little bit, get that closer so you can see it just around the edges there. And all I'm going to do is use a sharp X-Acto blade and very carefully, taking care not to cut myself, I'm going to go in and trim it off, just like that. It doesn't take very long and it isn't too much of a hassle. So I will do all of that for all of these sections and return to you when it is done. We are down in what will eventually be my brush booth, my spraying booth, with some proper extraction going on through the window. But for now, it's not there, so I'll just be opening the window and put my mask on. And what I'm going to be doing, to talk about masking, is primering the dice tear. Now, one of the issues I'll have with this is if I get primer on the contact surfaces where I'm looking at gluing, that will actually impact how well the whole thing glues together. So I have some normal masking tape, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to mask off anywhere where I don't want to have my primer. The reason why I'm priming now is I want to paint the insides of each of the sections as well, so that it looks nice. And if you assemble this without priming it and painting it separately, you'll find it a real struggle to get to some of these interior areas because of how the tumbling shapes are. So as simple as that is, I'm just going to stick some masking tape over all of the contact areas on both sides, cut it back with a sharp knife so that it doesn't prevent me from getting to the insides, and then when I've done that in all these sections, I will then get my rattle can and spray primer it with grey, and I will show you that when it is done. Yesterday I took another delivery from Sarissa Precision, and in that delivery came this Burrows and Badgers little kind of, what do they call it, undergrass, which is basically a bunker entrance that has a post box on it. And that post box is going to be perfect for Rosie's Hobbit Hole. It is these little sections here which I need to use, and so while I'm editing the vlog for this week, vlog 14 as it happens, what I'm going to do is, it's taken a little bit of time to process the files for some reason. They are quite long files, there's a lot of speeded up things this week, and so I'm going to just start to assemble this little bit of kit so that I can put that onto the board a little bit later on. There's no point in sitting staring at a progress bar, you may as well get something done, and this is a really good way of achieving hobby time when you think you haven't got any hobby time. Pay attention, if you find yourself sitting around waiting for something and there's a couple of minutes you can spend doing some hobby time, well, isn't it obvious? Just get some hobby time done. So first of all, I'm going to clip these out and push it out in the way that I did on my beginners how to work with MDF kits bit. Very, very simple to do. Get a very sharp X-Acto blade and just do that. So I can now pop basically all of this away apart from the instructions, which is good. So I'll slide that over onto the bench behind me. You can see that I'm at my computer desk. I will be pausing this video whenever I have to do any editing, because I do need to get that done. And having said that, having chopped those out, I now need to process the next file, so I will do that, and I'll be back with the next clip of this little assembly build in a very short while. So the next clip is loading very, very slowly. Let's get stuck into this. Very simple build, won't take me very long. I have my PVA just out of shot. I have my traditional dinner plate, and the instructions are right there. So you take this base and you have this little kind of notch that goes there. That's a little bit strange. So that goes there. So that goes on there, like that. Doesn't that then stick there? So I'm a bit confused. Yeah, no, it's got to be like that. It has to be like that. So, oh yeah, so okay, so it's a little bit balancing act that. What we're going to do is we're going to put that in the middle. We're going to put that coming in from underneath. Oh, I see. Okay, so I've got it out. I've worked it out now. Always read the instructions 3 times before you start videoing so you don't look like an idiot. So first of all, let's put a dip of PVA glue in the middle there. And let's situate that there, because that's basically the first thing that we're going to do, and that goes in like that. Then we'll put a little dip of PVA on each side here, and we'll get the first one of these, and that will go there. You see? And then with a little bit of dip of PVA that we've got on this side, this is going to be a minute's job to build. Took longer getting confused than I would actually building the thing, but that's cool. Confusion is common in my head. That then can go on there. My fat fingers. I am proof that having fat fingers should not stop you doing fiddly things like this. And then last but not least, a little bit of PVA on each end. And what we'll then do is I'll then prime this during the next, once it's dried obviously, use my sealant. So that then has these 2 little knocks here. Hopefully this has been in shot. I've not been looking at all because it's been fiddly. Yes, it looks like it will have been in shot. And then these go on the end, and then you have a little post box, delivery box, whatever you want to call it. And that was quite easy to assemble. A bit fiddly, a little bit confused at first, as you saw, but we've done it. So there we are. Let's see if I can get in shot. Yeah, there we are. Look, a little ditty delivery box to go outside Rosie's Hobbit Hole. So I will let that to dry now. I will clip that into one of these little clips I've got to hold it up and let the PVA dry. And when that's dry, I will prime it. And the next video clip has finished processing, so onwards. The first thing to do in any MDF build is have a look at the instructions. So let's see what we've got here. I've just built, as I've said, the delivery thing, so I don't need to worry about that, but that looks like that's steps later on. So step 1 is glue the burrow mound supports 1 to the base 3. Glue the burrow side steps 2 to the base 3, and then shape the card burrow mound panel 4 and glue to the supports. So that looks relatively obvious, and I think I can probably manage that. So I'll carefully move the cardboard out of the way. One of the things with Sarissa builds is sometimes the cardboard isn't quite so securely fastened. And what I'll do is I'll pop out, these are the supports that we need to do first. So I'll pop these out of the surrounds, out of the sprues, very quickly using a very sharp knife. There we are. Nice and easy. So those are the, what do they call them? The burrow mound supports. And while I've done that, I can see that the next clip has rendered in, so I'm going to pause this and I'll be back when I'm rendering the clip after. So the next thing that I'm going to pop out here is going to be the base, which again I'm just going to clip out very quickly using my X-Acto blade. Just find where the little sprue points are. There seems to be 4, one in each corner. That doesn't make a lot of sense. There we are. And the next thing to do is to glue these supports in like so. So a little bit of PVA on each one, just along the bottom, like that, and then press it in. So I will do the rest of those, and also put the next video clip into the video editor. It doesn't take that long for me to do these, and when I've done all that, I'll be back with the next step. All of these rib type structures have been glued in, so now I'm going to get the next step, which was to glue the burrow side steps, which are these 2 things. So I'll cut them out of their sprue and we'll glue them on as well in exactly the same way. There we are, that's done. So So the step after that is to glue the card burrow mound, which is this particularly slightly flimsy looking structure, I believe. And it does seem to suggest, if you look at the picture, that I'm taking that centre out. So let's do that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to grab some clamps, if I can say the word correctly. I should know that word, I say it a lot enough. So there we are. I'm going to grab some clamps so that I can clamp it down around the edge and keep it in place, and I will do that on camera. So, and I have another clip to put onto my vlog. So yeah, I'll be back again in a second. As you can see, I have all the clamps, as is traditional. And what I've done is I've had a little bit of a play with this off camera so that I can do this without looking too much of a fool. Not that I really care, we're learning together. And it does seem to go together quite nicely. So what I'm going to do first is carefully remove this, hopefully, if I can, yep. And put some glue on the centre bit here. So put some glue down each of these ribs, because that is what it is sticking to. And I'm actually going to need to put some more glue out on my little palette. However, I'm not going to put glue in the centrepiece because that is not what we're gluing at the moment. We are only gluing around the outside. So let's get that done now. And I will be back when I've finished putting all the glue on all of these ribs in exactly the way that you see me doing right now. The glue has all been applied all the way around this now. So now I'm going to press this cardboard section very carefully on over the top, just over the top, in the right place. That was almost a stupid mistake. Good thing I checked 3 times then. So that goes there and that goes there, and that will now press down with those little knocks and fit in perfectly. There we are. The next thing to do is to start, and I realise actually I did need to put glue on this down here, so there we are. You do need to put glue on this down on the bit next to where the steps are going to go for this first bit. So if you're making this along with me, don't make that mistake, or you probably already have because you probably stopped to work along. Anyway, and what we're going to do is you kind of pull this in and it clips in round. It's pretty simple really to do. It was as quick as that, and I probably don't need all of these clamps, but I do need some, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to put one clamp in on this one here, there, and I'm going to put another clamp in on this edge here to hold it in place. And then the tension should basically mean it's simple enough for me to now go around with the rest of my clamps. I'll say that when I'm not making a mess and flicking them everywhere. And I'm going to put a clamp on each of these ribs. Now that might seem a little bit overkill, but if you've got sufficient clamps, it's always better to have something be completely secure than presume. So I'm going to do that, and also keep editing my video as I am doing, and I'll be back when I've got the next step to do on this very quick, super quick build. I'm enjoying this. This is a really fun little thing to make. The next step in the instructions is actually to glue the steps on. So I'm going to wait for that until what I've just done is finished drying. And what I'm going to do instead is have a look at the actual hatch. So what they say to the hatch is that you should glue the cardboard to this wooden thing and glue the ring on as well. Now I'm actually going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to apply some paint to both these items and let that dry before I do any before I do any gluing together, just so that I can keep it looking nice, because I think I would rather have this wooden effect nice and then have a nice steel effect on the covering over the top of it done, and so I don't have to paint too tidily and neatly. So I will grab myself another brush. Actually I might have one here. Whoa, I do. I will use this brush that I have here, cunningly planned, and get this, what I'm using a lot of for my wood at the moment. I'm going to need to order some more because I bought this in Belgium a long time ago and it's running out. And I will just quickly, I'm going to use this brush that I have here, cunningly planned, and get this, what I'm using a lot of for my wood at the moment. I'm going to need to order some more because I bought this in Belgium a long time ago and it's running out. And I will just quickly, I'm going to paint that over this, and it really is a very quick process. It dries perfectly like wood, this colour. And with a nice dry brush, though you're not dry brushing because you're using quite a lot of paint, you get yourself a little bit of an effect of the wood grain, which is quite nice. So there's a little tip for you. I often normally work with quite a wet brush with paint, with water on it, but not in this case. So we will just quickly put that over there with some nice texture, as you can see, and I'll let that to dry, wash the brush, and then I'll come back and I'm going to use natural steel from Vallejo, which is here, natural steel from Vallejo, which is going to go onto this item which goes over the top and also onto the pulley. So I will get that ready and I'll be back. Clean brush, easy for me to say, has been sourced, and now I am going to put a little dollop of this. Normally I use a wet palette, but I'm just going to put it on here, onto my dining plate, and then again, not trying to be particularly tidy because I don't need to be. I'm going to put that over the cardboard, and I think that will give a very nice semi-glossy effect, semi-metallic effect, without taking too much time. And this is a super quick build. Highly recommend this if you're looking for some cool terrain, scatter terrain type thing for a Hobbit board, or I mean it could even be a prison because it's an underground entrance to something, so you could even have it in a non-specific scatter prison type thing. And then a little bit more, and I'll put that also on the ring here. There we are. So I'll let that to dry, and once that's dried, then I will be able to glue those together and I won't have to worry about being neat, which is good because I'm feeling lazy on this build. I want to see how quickly I can do it, frankly. That now needs to dry. Everything needs to dry. That's what I'm waiting for. So as soon as I'm ready, I'll be back for another clip to show me finishing this off, and then we'll get on to painting and flocking the entire thing. I've just read the instructions again and realised that actually what you need to do is glue the steps together before you actually put them in place. So I may as well get that done as well. So I'll quickly clip these out of the sprue in the way that you've seen me do now hundreds of times. You do really need a very good sharp knife if you're going to be making any kind of MDF kit, because you'll find yourself doing this a lot and you don't want to damage with a blunt knife. There we are. And what I'll be doing is I will start probably from here, and you build them up in such a way that you have 2 on the bottom, it looks like, 2 on the middle, and 1 on the top. So we'll just glue those together, and then I'll get a clamp and hold it in place. So PVA, you don't need to put a thick coat at all. Indeed, a thinner coat is better. Then we'll line them up, and what we'll do is we'll do it so that they all line to the back. Now I will put the next step on, next step on, and last step on. And I will grab myself a clamp. I've tidied them all away because I do keep myself very tidy when I'm working. I try to put things away once I've finished with them. So we'll push it so that it's all nice and 90 degrees, and I will clamp that in place so that it cannot move. So there we are. Now we really are ready for everything to dry and to be assembled, and then I can start on the next exciting bit, which is painting and flocking. It's after lunch and after a shower, which is always lovely when you've got a child and you get time to have a shower. This is all dried now, so I'm going to be able to take these clamps off. And also, so have the steps. So the next thing that I'm going to do on this is I am going to glue the steps in place. So that will simply involve taking these clamps off, getting some PVA out, which is there, PVA in here and on the sides, and I believe underneath there. Let me just absolutely confirm. Yes, absolutely. And then this then slides in here and is glued like that, so it goes right the way in, like that there. So what I'll do is, at the very least, I will get one of these big clamps. I can't reach. It won't reach, so I'm going to have to get one of my other clamps, which are over here. There we are. And that is going to be able to clamp in there very nicely. And then what I'll do is I'll get a clamp the other side and I'll clamp it there as well. You see, you can never have too many clamps. I've said it before. I'm sure I'll say it again. Right. I'll let that dry now. The paint has dried. So I'm going to grab my knife and I'm going to glue the cardboard on top of the MDF shape. But I'm going to cut the MDF shape out first, so they've got a little bit more flexibility handling it, I think. I really like the effect that I've got with that paint. Very simple effect. So I just have to spread it away, a bit easier to see from the back where I need to cut. There we are, that's that. And then what I'll do is I'll cut out the cardboard. Yeah. And then a little bit of PVA on the cardboard. And then it will just sit on top of the hatch. That was the word I was looking for before. Hatch. Tell you what, your brain doesn't half sometimes go blank when you're talking to no one. And that will just sit on there. And that looks great. That looks like a very solid hatch for a prison or for a hobbit living under the ground, whichever you wish. And the second thing to do is to pop the handle out. There we are. Actually, I should have painted both sides of that, shouldn't I? There we are. Didn't even think of that. Proof that I don't think of everything. So I'll have to paint that. I'll have to paint that before I stick it in. So I'm going to paint that before I stick it in, and then I will be back. But I'll let that dry, and I'll get that painted in the same silver colour all round, and then I'll stick it in, and I'll show you what it looks like. But that looks wicked. I've stuck the ring in, as you can see. So now the final bit of this, and I'm just umming and ahhing whether I'm going to stick this in place now or whether I'm going to do some more scenicking around it. I think I'm going to stick it in place now because then I can scenic up to it and I can do the static grass and I won't have to worry about cleaning up. So the way I'm going to do that, I'm going to do it shut. You can, if you wish, leave this open, and then the circular thing that I removed before, you can put it in the middle to block it off. But I want to do it shut. So it's going to be a case of PVA on the bottom of this, there. Carefully position this so that you are over those two holes and straight. And then a bit of weight. Right, that's that for now. Leave that to dry, and then really honestly, I promise, I'll be on to flocking and doing other basing stuff. The delivery postal box, whatever you want to call it, has dried, and I'm so pleased. I've just actually offered it up to the Hobbit Hole, and it's going to look perfect. What I'm going to do now is quickly seal it in this MDF quick drying clear sealer, and I'm going to do it in a very simple way. This is the little crocodile clip thing that that I'll be using to hold it and dry it, and I'm just literally going to dip it. There we are. Right, so that's done. Simple as that. I'll let that dry, and then when I come to paint it, the paint will now no longer soak in, and it'll be a much quicker, more efficient process. So I'll stick that to dry, and I'll be back and paint that again very, very shortly. This is now ready for painting. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit because I want you to be able to see it. So I'm going to be using two colours. I'm going to be using burnt red, which is 70814, and I'm going to be using dark grey, which is 70994. Now the actual body and most of the box is the dark burnt red, and then the little kind of door on the end is going to be grey. So I'm actually going to paint the grey first, and then I will do the red around the outside. And I'm still going to be using, not my wet palette, but just going to be using a relatively dry cheap brush and my my normal dining room plate palette. So we will paint that dark grey, and we'll do the other side as well. There we are, just like that, very simply. And then wash that off. I put way too much dark grey out. It's a good thing I've got some other stuff I want to use grey on. And then we will clean my brush and straight in with the burnt red. There we are. Which is going to look absolutely wonderful. It's funny, I was looking at this on the Sarissa website for a little while, thinking, that could work quite well for my Hobbit Hole for Rosie. And I was holding off, and then I pulled the trigger suddenly, as I will do. And am I ever glad I did? Because it's just perfect. There we are. And now very carefully, the ends. And I'm leaving the little handle because I might bob that with a little bit of metallic, but I'm not sure at the moment. There we are, that's one end. And now the other end. And there we are. One Hobbit Hole sized delivery box. So I'll just let that dry, and then we'll stick it on the diorama, which I'm very excited about seeing. Actually, there's a little bit there that needs doing. There we are. How about that? A little red delivery box. Fantastic. I'm going to paint the stick with the grey. Right, I'll let that dry now, and we'll be back to show you when I stick it on the display board. Okay, now we are ready to install the little post-off box thing, delivery box. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use my bradawl, my square bradawl that I've used before, and it's going to sit in here just behind this fence post. So I'm going to press really hard. Such a great tool, this. Get yourself one of these. Let me see if I can remember to put a link to the ones I bought, wooden handled. And they've got one with a chisel handle, one with a circular one, and that one that's square. They're very, very useful. And then that means that this has a place to fit in. And it will slot into the base, and I can glue it in there. So let me get some PVA. Friendly PVA. What would we do without PVA as hobbyists? Stick some PVA all over that. I will obviously be putting some terrain around the base. And there you have it. Perfect. That just looks great. Let me see if I can zoom that in even better. There we are, right in the centre. Get that focus. Going to focus. Come on, there we are, look at that. Just brilliant, really pleased. There we are. Actually, you know what? Yeah, really pleased with that. That's absolutely spot on. Right, we're going to let that dry and then we'll be back for the next process shortly. Well, there you are, the end of vlog number 14. And it ended up being about an hour long, about half of that done today while I was editing. So there we are. The lesson there is don't hobby while you're editing, because you get loads and loads done, or maybe that's the lesson is that you should. And maybe we should be taking whatever opportunity we can to get ourselves to the hobby bench and do whatever we can in those snatched couple of seconds while the video is being imported into the video editing software. I've had a good week. It has been a good week. It's been tough at times, but I have got quite a lot done, and I'm looking forward to next week. My month are all going to be here, and I'm hoping to get quite a lot of miniature painting done, which is not something I do a lot of. So if you're not yet a subscriber, please do click below. If you are a subscriber, don't forget to ding the bell. Leave me a comment. I love hearing from you, and I do attempt to reply to every single comment that does come my way. And last but by no means least, thank you for watching BeardClipper.